Okay, guys, welcome back to another Meet the Candidate. Tonight's candidate is Elizabeth Anne Gover-Miller, and she is running for Tukvpvtce District Seat B. Would you prefer Gover-Miller or Miller, or do you have a preference?
It's actually a hyphenated name. It's my husband's name. So it's really both. I don't have a preference, but Gover
Okay.
Miller is the full name.
All right,
So,
Gover-Miller will do that. So thank you for joining us tonight, Ms. Gover-Miller, and I wanted to give you a few minutes at the start to tell us about yourself and why you're running for office.
well, Hishe Muskogogi. Thank you for having me, Mvskoke Media. Thank you for doing this for all of the candidates. I am Ann Townsend, formerly known as Ann Townsend Edwards. But on the ballot and on my citizenship card, it's Elizabeth Anne Gover-Miller, and so it's going to be listed like that on the ballot as well, Elizabeth Anne Gover-Miller. And so I want to run because I feel like it's my duty to give back to the people. I've been employed with the tribe intermittently for roughly 24 years. I started working for the tribe in Head Start right when I turned 18, fresh out of high school, and have watched the tribe um, just change over the years. And I've always been involved. My family's always been involved in politics with the tribe and attending meetings. And for years, I have grown up listening to discussions and council representatives and Mikolgi meet and visit and pour over the needs of the nation and the direction the nation should go. And I was involved in my first campaign when I was 18, when Shelley Crow ran for second chief. And that just kind of solidified my interest in leadership. And so I have, again, like I said, I worked in programs like Head Start, childcare. I moved over to patient advocacy for the health system for several years. After that, I moved to family violence prevention. After that, then I moved for several years to cultural preservation. I was able to advocate on a federal level for the tribe in front of Chairman Pai with the FCC. And then lastly, my position with the nation was working underneath Chief Hill's administration for Principal Chief Hill and for the people of the Muskogee Nation as the tribal liaison. And I took that program and I just took it to another level. Um, was able to bring on other staff to help me carry out outreaches to at-large citizens. And I just feel like my time with the nation shouldn't be over, and I can advocate on a broader level with a little bit more push behind as a national council representative. And so I am running for seat B of the Tukvpvtce District, and I am ready to roll.
All right. We've got some questions in the chat already, and I'm going to prioritize those. I just wanted to squeeze in one question at the start from my email list because you were the at-large liaison. I wanted to get your opinion at the start about the district voting amendment on the ballot. Could you talk about that a little bit? What's your opinion on that?
So, initially I was against it. I'm really indifferent to the turnout. The way it's turned out. I've received information that initially, when the um, Constitutional Commission put together some of the amendments that went on the ballot, that this was introduced illegally. And so it has to be undone in order to make it right with the Constitution again. So there are some factors with the information that I've gotten that, I'm really indifferent to it because most of the beyond the reservation citizens have to choose a district in which to vote from anyway. And the election board makes it a policy. If they don't choose a district, then they're automatically, um, uh, how do you say, countered or counted in with the Okmulgee district is what they're submitted as. And so, you have to choose a district anyway. The other side of that, I mean, and I see pros and cons to it, so I'm really indifferent. What I really would like to say is that I'm glad that it is being put before the people to make that choice. I think that ultimately, making sure that these constitutional amendments our voice, the voice comes from the people because that's where the power's at. I really truly believe that. And our people should have a say in the direction of our nation. And we should be held accountable to them. So I'm just indifferent. I'm neither for or against it. I will do whatever the people's wish is, because as a candidate, one of my platforms is that I will represent all people no matter where they live, whether it's inside the reservation, outside the reservation, or across the world. And so it doesn't matter to me what district you live in or what district you vote out of. I plan on being an advocate for all citizens.
All right. Now, guys, I'm going to start doing the chat questions. And I wanted to put a caveat in here at the beginning. Some questions were posted before we start, so I'm going to have to scroll to the top and then work my way down. So forgive me if something gets missed or lost in there. I might, if you put a question in and it didn't get asked, go ahead and put it in again later on down in the chat and we'll try to get it asked. But that being said, the first question on the chat here is T.Y. Pearl's asking, what is your position on the Freedmen executive order? Will you support the chief's position by putting a temporary stay in place legislatively through the council until the people vote to amend?
I just saw that executive order come out today, and I have not had a chance to thoroughly read through everything that it means. But what I gather, I didn't know that it stated in there that there would be an opportunity um, for the Constitution to be amended again. And so what I gathered from that executive order was that Chief Hill, it wasn't really that he was creating a stay, but there needed to be a time period for creation of policies and procedures on how we're going to include freedmen. I stand behind Chief Hill because he is the ultimate leader of our tribe. I support his decisions. I think that he is very much trying to do what is best for the nation as a whole. Um, I think that this issue of freedmen is really sensitive on both sides. I am very in tune with that sensitivity, and I understand both sides of it. I want what's best for the nation, and if the Supreme Court decides that we have to follow this law and allow the freedmen in, then I support Chief Hill on creating the endeavors that he needs to create to make sure that operationally the citizenship board can meet the demands of the enrollment, and that the programs can also do the same.
Okay. And I wanted to let you guys know, I wanted to let you guys watching at home know that there has been some stuff drop at the Supreme Court in this case just before we started here. And I'm going to wait about 10, 15 minutes after we get done doing this. And then I'm going to do a lawyered up live stream, and I'm going to go all over that stuff. So you guys keep an eye on Facebook and our YouTube channel, because we're going to do another lawyered up right after this, where we do that and some stuff that citizens have requested me to do an update on. So keep your eye out for that. Sorry to interject there, but just to let you guys know. Moving on down on the chat questions here. David Ware says, Anne was our former tribal liaison to Citizens Beyond the Boundaries. I want to commend her for her excellent service and outreach. I would like to hear more about her plans to extend services to us, and us, I'm assuming, means the citizens at large.
So one of the things that I think gets often miscommunicated is that when you run for national council, you're able to create programs. And of course, writing legislation is an important part of helping to create the programs. But the real driving force behind creating programs and services directly for the citizens lies with the executive branch. And so it's up to Chief Hill and the administration to create those programs, and it's up to the legislative branch to provide the legislation and, of course, appropriate the funding for it. And so my plan is not fully laid out, because until I get elected, there's going to be a host of things that I don't know if I can do or if I can't do, or if it's never been introduced before, then can I go ahead and try to introduce this here? Um, but one of the things I do strongly want to say is I do believe that because our Constitution says that if you can provide um, that, prove that you're a citizen to this nation and you can enroll and get your citizenship card, that you are entitled to full rights and benefits of the nation. And it does not have a restriction in there that says, but you have to live within reservation boundaries. So my point being is as an advocate, when I was the tribal liaison citizen, or for the citizens beyond the reservation, I want to continue advocating for services for our people. I do strongly believe that the nation can afford to do something. And it's once I get into office, if I'm elected, finding that avenue and that outlet to start creating legislation that will support programs and services for the citizens, but we have to do that working together with the executive branch. It's not really fully a function that I myself could control.
Okay. Karen Powell asks, have you ever been fired from a job? If so, what would you have done differently?
If I've ever been fired from a job, when I was 16, I was fired from Sirloin Stockade. And of course that comes with age and maturation. And there are certain instances that I can think upon, looking back, hindsight's always 2020. So whether I was 16 or whether was the age that I am now, you can always look back and say, well, I could have done this differently or I could have done that differently. Um, I think it's important that when people lose their jobs from whichever position they may hold, then it's important to look at those as lessons and how can you do better the next time around.
Okay. Karen Powell asks, do you attend council meetings regularly as a citizen?
Not in person because I live in Holdenville, and so since I have not been um, on the council and since I live far away and I do have children at home, I try to keep up with the council meetings online, live. And so that's where I don't go in person a whole lot. Um, if I'm elected, I would be there in person all of the time. But as far as physical attendance, no. Online, yes. I do try to keep up with that. And if I miss a meeting, then I try to go back and watch the lives to stay abreast of anything that's going on.
Okay. Mike TV asks, you said for years you were involved with tribal politics. How old were you when the Constitution was revised in '79? What were your thoughts on it then, and what are your thoughts on it now?
So I'm going to give away my age here, but in 1979, I was only 8 years old. So I didn't know much about the Constitution as far as what was being revamped or the things that were being introduced in it. Um, I do remember being at meetings and playing with the other kids, at that time. Can you ask that second part of that question again?
What were your thoughts on it then? What are your thoughts on it now?
So my thoughts on it now would be we are in a post-McGirt world when it comes to our reservation. I do look back at the Constitution and I think that there is so many things that have changed and so many things that the McGirt ruling has impacted that it would be a prime time for us to revamp the whole Constitution to fit the nation um, as it moves forward, first of all, in a world of technology and the growth that we've come across. I don't think that our nation ever thought it was going to grow to be as big as it is. And so, and to see the changes that it's made. So, introducing a preamble and a Bill of Rights for Muskogee citizens would be something that in fact, I tried to sit at my desk the other night and think about, what it is that I would introduce as far as a Muskogee Bill of Rights. And, just a lot of those things, but definitely our amendment, our reservation boundaries, taxation, um, what Muskogee citizen rights are. I think those all could be looked at differently and strengthened with an updated constitution in totality.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Abalove asks, what do you feel about the chief executive order today that put in steps for the citizenship office to now follow the creek? Sorry, I'm going to start over.
Okay.
What do you feel about the chief executive order today that put in steps for the citizenship office to now follow the Creek Supreme Court ruling concerning the Creek Freedmen?
I will just say that there is no question that on both sides of the fence, there are hurt feelings and hurt emotions. On one side of the fence, I can see the fact that the Muskogee people, for us, it goes much more than just proving citizenship. Who we are as Muskogee people has been embedded in our DNA for thousands of years. And for thousands of years, we've carried this culture and traditions with us. And I bring back into, my mom was a boarding school survivor, so I bring back into the fact that assimilation came into play. Being forced to learn a language and to forget a language that Muskogee people were born to speak. It almost feels that same way for Muskogee citizens to feel like they're being forced to allow freedmen in. On the other hand, do I believe that the freedmen deserve reparations? Yes, I do. I completely do. I just am not sure that it belongs within the Muskogee Nation. However, I don't want anybody getting offended by what I'm saying by that. I'm trying to be realistic about the approach because, if we have to move forward and this is something that we have to comply with, then better to begin to work together. How do I feel about it? Frankly, you know, Chief Phil is charged with carrying out and building the nation's programs. It's something that he's been ordered by the law to do. He has to follow the law. I have to support that. Do I have to like everything that is put in front of me? No. But in the best interest of the nation, we have to look as National Council representatives at putting those things forward. So my personal feelings, I feel, are irrelevant to anything that is going on. My priority is doing what needs to be done for the sake of the people, for the sake of making sure the nation is in compliance and moving the nation forward from this day forward.
Okay. Abalove asks, do you believe the Creek Supreme Court have the last say-so?
I think I always thought that as far as the Muskogee Creek Nation goes, yes, I do believe the Supreme Court has the last say so. However, we are under federal guidelines, and the federal court in Washington, D.C., I feel like could also be utilized as a final word. This is the final say. So I've always looked at it that way. So I'm not real sure how to answer that as far as, what is the right final say? Do we go, being a sovereign nation, do we go forward with federal court, appearing in federal court, or do we stay with our Muskogee Creek Nation? As being a sovereign nation, if we're going to continue our sovereignty, I feel like then Muskogee Supreme Court is the final say.
Okay. Millie Wind asks, currently you are living in your third Creek Nation home, two of which you have received in the past 14 to 15 years. How do you justify that to tribal members who are, have been, or know of someone that has been on the housing waiting list for years?
Well, Millie, thank you. That's my cousin's wife, by the way. I knew this question was going to come up. So want to say that, first of all, I don't justify that. I think a lot of people look at that as wrong. One of the things that I've always done, and it's made me a good advocate, not only for myself but for others as well, is if you don't ask the question, then the question is always 100% going to be no. The house that I live in now, I requested to receive um, because I wanted to be a foster parent for the nation. Um, and I had already been doing fostering, but what caused this to take place was the fact that there were 3 foster children that I was asking our Children and Family Services program to be able to foster because I would be able to provide a kinship home for them. And the home that I was living in prior to, um, it was deemed by Creek Nation as not big enough. It was not big enough. I did everything that I could. It was in a area where there was a homeowners association. They wouldn't allow me to change my um, garage into another room to make a bigger space. And by the people who were running Children and Family Services at the time, it was not big enough. That's the word that I got. And so these 3 children, who were all enrolled Mvskoke children, were given to a white family living in the Oklahoma City area who had retained an attorney to fight for them. And nobody stood up for those children. And so a year had gone by. I knew personally the grandmother of those children, and it was very much a destruction for her to have to go through this, to know that her grandchildren were given to a non-native family. And there were a slew of other issues that came into play for why they couldn't go back to their Mvskoke family. But I was doing a outreach, and I had the housing program there for the citizens, but I just thought, again, I had been told, if you don't ask the question, the answer is always going to be no. So I approached the housing director and I said, I'm not asking for special treatment. I just need to know, is it possible? Is there a way? And one of the other housing workers heard me ask the housing director, and she said, there absolutely is. You can do that. And I didn't know if people knew this or not, but you can actually trade homes. Say you're living in Okemah and want to move to Tulsa, and if somebody who lives in Tulsa has a home and wants to move to Okemah, you can actually switch homes. You have to take care of all of the paperwork through housing, but you can actually switch homes. And housing does not, I want to say foster that. They don't regulate that, or they not regulate. I don't really know what the word is. It would be like what a realtor does. Um, but they will allow those things to happen. And so one of the things that I had to do that people don't understand is the house that I was living in, I had to pay for any repairs out of pocket that were beyond normal wear and tear. I had to sign an agreement. I had to wait for a house to come open, and it was months before this house had come open. And there was nobody at the time. Nobody wanted to move to Holdenville, and the house was getting broken into. Windows were getting broken. They were having to be boarded up. And so I accepted that house because it was going to allow me to be able to foster up to 5 children at a time. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people just think, oh, well, she got her another house, got her another house. And that's not true. I did ask for this house. I did have to do come into compliance with some things with housing before I was able to get this house. I have to remain a foster parent in order to keep this house. I am currently getting ready to adopt my first child through the Mvskoke Creek Nation, and I plan on continuing to foster until I can't foster anymore. I have had about 12 children filter through that home, and that has allowed me to do respite care on the weekends when I can. It's allowed me to have long-term foster placement. And again, like I said, I'm getting ready to adopt my first child. So that's my justification. And I feel like there are a lot of citizens out there who need to know that Muskogee Creek Nation has a shortage of foster homes. At the time and I've been very invested as a foster parent. At the time I was asking about this home, there were over 360 children in state custody, Muskogee children. There was almost 2,000 Native American children in state custody. 360 of them were Muskogee Creek children. And on top of that, we only had about 45 homes at the time. And so somebody needed to step up and do something. And I did. I asked the question, I got the answer, and I pushed forward with that. And we need more foster homes. We need more foster homes. We need more people to stand up and say, we will love our Muskogee children and we will learn to teach them and nurture them the Muskogee values and traditions and love them so that we don't lose them to society.
Okay. We got another question here, and I'm going to read the first part because I'm hoping the editorial board is watching this. T.Y. Parole says, kind of hard to take concerns to the Mvskoke Media Board when they aren't publicizing their meetings on social media. Just saying. Does the candidates support reforming open meetings and records laws?
I am very much for transparency. I feel like if there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to hide.
Absolutely.
Not doing anything wrong, then you don't have anything to cover up. And so I'm absolutely in favor of transparency and open records. I definitely am also for policies and procedures because we just don't want records going out here, there, and everywhere, but following a proper process so that we are documenting how records are released and to who they go to and for what reason. Open meetings for citizens to attend. In fact, I came from a time when a lot of the council meetings they had much more of attendance. I think it's important that we maintain a level of transparency and that the citizens know that we answer to them as National Council representatives.
Okay. Millie Wind has a number 2 here. She has some follow-ups. They're kind of broken up between other people's questions, but I'm going to ask them in the order that they're in the chat just so we could go. So Millie Wind says, the 2 prior homes you have had, were they relinquished back to housing to go to the next person on the waiting list, or were they issued to family members?
They were relinquished back onto housing. The very first home that I had was a very small home in Morris, and Ron Qualls was the housing director at the time. And when I relinquished that home back to the nation and signed all of the paperwork back over, he called my sister, who was my beneficiary, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. And that's how she moved into that home. But it wasn't anything I did or said. That was just how he handled things. I don't know at the time what the protocol was, but that is what happened in that potential situation, or that situation as far as that house goes. The second home that I lived in Glenpool, the one that was part of the homeowners association, that was fully relinquished back to the tribe, and I'm going to assume that they put it to the next person on the list. I don't know who's residing in that house.
Okay. Elijah B. asks, would you consider giving the voter some kind of incentive to the ones that vote?
I think that everybody has a responsibility as a Muskogee citizen to step up and vote. I don't know any other way to say care about your people. I don't believe incentivizing is the way to do it. I believe education at an early age is a way to do it. I feel like incentivizing is like saying, here's a cookie for a job well done, and it's already a responsibility that you're supposed to have to your nation. Um, I feel like the incentive is voting in itself, because it's your right to cast your vote. It's your right to choose your representative. That should be the incentive. It's your right to be involved with the nation, to have a say in what goes on and how the laws are created, in the programs and services that are needed. That should be the incentive.
Okay. And guys, we are at 30 minutes right now. I'm going to go a little bit longer because there's still a lot of questions in the chat to try to get as many of them as I can, but we'll probably do a hard deadline of like 35 minutes. Then we'll wrap it up, okay? And then, like I said, maybe 30 minutes later, I'm going to do a lawyered up.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, Millie Wind has a third part to her question. She says, number 3, based on this info, how can we believe that if elected, you will uphold the Creek Nation Constitution or abide by tribal agency policy?
Well, I feel like that question is alluding to the fact that I haven't abided by tribal policy, and I have. I have done nothing wrong. I have done nothing illegal. I abided by all of the housing policies and requirements. And so, what I would like to just say to that is, I have always tried to do my best as a member of the Mvskoke Nation, as a citizen of the Mvskoke Nation, to help people. I have a proven track record of helping, no matter where you lived. Citizens call my office. I did whatever I could to help. I sought out services. I just helped. I helped wherever I could. And so you don't have to believe my words, but what you can do is elect me to office and let my actions prove it. I have always been somebody who, um, for lack of a better way of saying it, my actions match up with my words. And if they don't, call me out on it. But my actions will match my words. I can only prove to citizens, and here's the other side of this. If a person wants to believe that you've done wrong, they're going to choose to believe that you've done wrong no matter what you say to try to convince them otherwise. And so all I can do is prove to the citizens that I'm a hard worker. I've been a hard worker. I intend to serve the Mvskoke citizens with the utmost integrity, and do so every day that if I'm elected a National Council representative for you, I am going to work hard every day and just prove it to you.
Okay. Karen Powell asks, do you feel you could compose yourself when receiving backlash as a National Council member?
Here's the thing, and I know why Karen's asking this question. There are times when people have bad days, and there are times when it just feels like, there is no other way except, snapping back, or I don't know, maybe you look at it as lashing out. Um, as far as keeping composure, I've always kept composure. I go as far to say there are times in everyone's life where, in a split instant, maybe somebody snaps. But that doesn't make the person who they are. That doesn't make who that person is. What defines that person is their actions, everything that they do, everything that they say moving forward, the love and the care and the concern and the heart that they put into the job that they do. One single moment, one bad second does not define who a person is for a lifetime. And a lot of times people like to look and remember anything negative that they can come up with versus all the good that a person can do. As far as keeping my composure, I can. I have taken it. It's not easy to be a manager or a supervisor because in upper levels, you do have to take constructive criticism. And sometimes you have supervisors that don't always speak to you in a nice or kind way. That doesn't give a person the right to mouth back off or to be ugly. However, there are times when people have bad minutes, bad seconds, whatever, a bad moment. I'm a person who has always been level-headed enough to look at our citizens, see their needs, know that when citizens have a bad minute, it's not always a reflection of who I am as a person, but it's a reflection of the people that they've encountered before me. It's a reflection of all of the negative things that they have been through that have caused them to get to the point to where they want to lash out at somebody. So yeah, I do feel like as a National Council representative, I can take the heat and be held accountable to still treat everyone with respect.
All right. And guys, we're at 35 minutes. I know I said I was gonna do a hard wrap at 35 minutes, but there's one more question here that I wanted to ask. TY Prol asks, would you support creating a tribal public access channel to record and transmit live government and independent agency chartered community public meetings?
Man, that is an awesome idea. Whoever TY Prol is needs to come to work for the tribe.
I've been saying that for a long time, but yes, go ahead.
I do believe that is a wonderful idea. In fact, I did an interview with Angel Ellis it's probably a couple of years back.
Yes.
When they were doing the documentary over bad press.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was that we have gone away from, Mvskoke Media used to have every Saturday show at 1:00.
Yes, ma'am.
And I really, truly believe that we need to bring that back because our citizens are missing out on a lot of good information that's going on in the community. So, yes, I absolutely am 100% in favor of TV shows like that and, making news available to citizens wherever they can watch. Because nowadays you can watch online. So, some of these people are watching online all the way across the world.
Absolutely.
And I just think that's a great idea.
All right. Well, that's why I wanted to get that question in there, is because I thought it was a good idea myself. So I want to apologize to everybody. I know there's still a lot of questions in there, but we only have so much time that we could go, and we're at 6:37. So, and I think the lawyered up that I'm going to do, I'm going to start it at 7, guys, and we're going to go over it. And I'll build a post right after I get out of here. But thank you so much, Ms. Gover-Miller, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it, and I want to thank you guys too for tuning in and asking the great questions. And that's it for this week. And then we have a Facebook post with the schedule if you want to see who's up next for next week. And you guys have a great Labor Day. And we'll see you guys again. Mado, Hadum, Chihichatlis.
Mado, Mado,